Chemical hair relaxing. Yesterday we went through the process of learning how to apply our products, and today we're going to find out what they will do and why they react like they do and why sometimes we may lose some hair in the process and what we can do to avoid that. So chemical hair relaxing itself is the process of rearranging the basic structure of hair. And actually it does the same thing as a permanent wave does. Before we rolled our hair on the rods, that was a physical change. We applied waving solution, that broke down the disulfide bonds. Chemical change. This time we're going to leave out the physical part of rolling it on the rods, and we're going to apply our product. It's a lot thicker product, if you noticed. Our permanent wave solution is real watery. This was real creamy. We're going to get the hair in a straightened form while that chemical relaxer is on there, and the chemical relaxer itself is going to hold it into a straight form until it can penetrate and break the disulfide bonds. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Extremely curly hair may exist in all races, and as women and a lot of men today, whatever we've got, we want the other. And that's how we make a lot of money. The chemicals, needless to say, our chemical processes are the high dollar things. So what we're talking about when we say anybody can have extremely curly hair, any race, mixed race, can all have curly hair. And sometimes they want that curl either removed or relaxed down to make it more manageable. Extremely curly hair grows in long twisted spirals or coils. Cross sections are highly elliptical and vary in shape and thickness along their lengths. A lot of us instructors fuss about this cross-sectional thing because it's actually splitting hairs. You take one hair and slice it in half and then look. And curly hair is said to have a flat surface once you cross-section it. But not all curly hair. Straight hair is said to have a round surface when you cross-section it. The main thing to remember about curly hair is that it's a lot more fragile than straight hair, because everywhere it makes a wind, you will see the diameter of the actual hair strand change. A straight hair, you'll go along and the diameter will be the same. But when you straighten out a curly hair, it will go and it'll be the same, and then it gets smaller, and then it comes back up and gets smaller. And these little small places are where the kinks or curls are, and that's where the weakest part of the hair is, and that's where it's more apt to break, and that's why we want to be really careful once we get our product on about combing it and pulling on it and messing up the elasticity. The thinnest and weakest sections of the hair strand, again, are located at their twist. These sections are also bent at an extremely sharp angle and will be stretched the most during relaxing. And we always want to remember the old saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And the little places, the coils, are the weakest links. We want to talk about our caution here, and I really like the new book. We did not have the cautions in earlier editions. So this has been real good. It'll call your attention to what we really need to be careful of. Relaxers are characterized by an extremely high alkalinity. They can literally melt or dissolve hair if used incorrectly. Most relaxers contain the same ingredients used in depilatories. What a depilatory is Nair or neat. Y'all know what that is? We put it on our legs to remove the hair, don't we? And it actually eats the hair up or dissolves it so that we can wipe it off. So we want to remember the same thing that goes into that is what's going into our chemical relaxers. First thing we want to talk about is Thio relaxers. Thio relaxers are made of the same chemicals that our permanent waves we studied were. Thio is the same reducing agents used in permanent waves. Thio relaxers usually have a pH above 10. But they have a higher concentration of ATG than we did in our permanent waving. Thio relaxers are also thicker with a higher viscosity that is more suitable for the application as a relaxer. And what that means, we've got this watery substance to put on our wave rods. And now if we're going to give a Thio relaxer, they have added a cream simply so that it will hold that hair in a straightened position. We remember how important it was that the hair stayed on the perm rod as we processed it so it take that new shape. And it's also as important that the hair be held in a straight form now, so that when we wash the relaxer out, that the hair will still remain in that same shape. Thio relaxers break disulfide bonds and soften the hair, just as Thio did in permanent waving. After enough bonds are broken, the hair is straightened into its new shape and the relaxer is rinsed from the hair. Then comes the blotting. Does that sound like permanent waving? And then comes the neutralizer. Thio neutralization used in Thio relaxers is an oxidizing agent, usually hydrogen peroxide. The oxidation reaction caused by the neutralizer rebuilds the disulfide bonds that were broken by Thio relaxers. Do y'all remember me saying yesterday that relaxers broke disulfide bonds, but there were no way to reform them? We're not talking about Thio, and Thio is very seldom used as a relaxer because it's not strong enough to break a sufficient number of bonds. So when we talk about the Thio relaxers, we're talking about usually if we're going to do the rearranger and do the curly kit, or if we've got a Caucasian individual that we're going to do a relaxer on. And y'all asked that question yesterday and I didn't follow up on it because I knew we were going there today. It doesn't take as strong a relaxer for the most Caucasian curly head clients, so we're going to use Thio. As a matter of fact, Thio is so good at that sometimes we can use the actual liquid product that we would put on the perm rods. And if that curly hair is not really resistant, it'll work. The problem with using the perm solution as we put on our rods is because it is so liquid it wants to drip off the hair. And we find ourselves constantly wanting to comb at it. And that causes it to stretch more and we wind up with more damage. Excuse me. The most commonly used relaxer in the salon is the hydroxide relaxers. The hydroxide ion is the active ingredient in all hydroxide relaxers. Sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, lithium hydroxide, and guanidine hydroxide are all types of hydroxide relaxers. They're very strong alkalis. They swell the hair up to twice its normal diameter. Do y'all remember where the no spaces were on the pH scale we did? We know the strong ones are at each end, but what were the numbers? 0 to 3 on the acid side. What was the numbers on the alkaline side? 11 to 14. That's correct. 11 to 14. But we just said that Thio relaxers were 10. What are hydroxide relaxers now? 13. That is scary. And what that means is not all hydroxide relaxers are 13, but if we buy a super strength relaxer, the pH of it is 13. What might the pH be in hair dissolver or depilatory? Probably 13. It's just used differently. Doesn't have as many additives. Hydroxide relaxers are not compatible with Thio relaxers because they use different chemistry. Thio relaxers have a pH of about 10 and use Thio to break the disulfide bonds. Although the high pH of a Thio relaxer swells the hair, Thio breaks the disulfide bonds. Hydroxide relaxers have an even higher pH. The average pH of hair is 5.0, and many hydroxide relaxers have a pH over 13. Since each step in the pH scale represents a 10-fold change in concentration, pH of 13 is 100 million times more alkaline than hair. Hydroxide relaxers break disulfide bonds differently than in the reduction reaction of Thio relaxers. Hydroxide relaxers remove one atom of sulfur from a disulfide bond, and it converts it into a lanthionine bond. This process is called lanthionization. Disulfide bonds contain 2 sulfur atoms. Lanthionine bonds contain only 1 sulfur atom. The disulfide bonds that are broken by hydroxide relaxers are broken permanently. They can never be reformed. So then we come to the process of neutralization. The neutralization of hydroxide relaxers does not involve oxidation. Deactivation or neutralization of hydroxide relaxers neutralizes the alkaline residues left in the hair by the relaxer. pH of hydroxide relaxers is so high that the hair remains at an extremely high pH, even after thorough rinsing. Y'all remember about pH, we said the hair is acid, and anytime we use an alkaline substance on it, we need to follow it with something to bring it back as close to its normal pH. And this is what they're talking about. And we may not realize this, or you may not realize this, but water actually brings it part of the way down, because water has a pH of 7. So if we've used a 9.6 permanent wave on it, when we rinse it, we're already starting the process of taking it back to its normal pH. But we've got to have a little more, because we don't want to leave it at 7 either. The pH of hydroxide relaxers is so high that the hair remains at an extremely high pH even after thorough rinsing. Although rinsing is important, it does not deactivate the relaxer or restore the normal acidic pH of the hair and scalp. I want to tell you just how important rinsing is, and even shampooing if we're not careful about the types of shampoo we use, and I am going to discuss a couple of types with you. We had a lady come in here one day and she said, "My head is hurting so bad back here," and said, "There's a big knot has come on my head, and I want y'all to see about it." Matter of fact, she wanted them to get the instructor to check on it. And she was just here for a shampoo and see it. And they took her back there and shampooed and all, and she still had this lump. So they come and got me, and we got looking at it. And I knew it was some form of product that was left there. But I figured it was like a setting gel or something, because it had stuck so hard. But somebody had given her a relaxer, and through the rinsing and through the shampooing, they had left a gob of relaxer there. It had hardened, but before it did that, it had almost grown to her scalp. And we had to take the comb and some detangling stuff and work that relaxer out of the hair a little at the time. A place about this large on her scalp was left just raw and red. Needless to say, the hair wasn't in good shape either. And that could have been so easily avoided by choosing the correct shampoo. What happens with some of these companies with shampoos, and they call them neutralizing shampoos, you rinse and rinse and rinse and get all the product out of it that you can. But the shampoo has an indicator to let you know, is it all gone? One company calls theirs 2 cents, and that doesn't mean cents like C-E-N-T-S or 2 pennies. It means cents like S-C-E-N-T-S. And after you've rinsed and you apply the shampoo, if all of the relaxer has not been removed from the hair, you get a little disagreeable odor. It kind of stinks. And that tells you there is relaxer left in the hair. Another company come out with the color system, and this was mentioned yesterday, and I told y'all I will explain later. But you put it on, and it's blue or pink. Different ones do it different ways. And if there's relaxer left in there, it will change color. It's called a color indicator. And it lets you know by the color you still got relaxer in it. So one of those things, either way, tells you rinse that out and shampoo again until with the 2 cents you get a real flowery, pleasant smell from the shampoo. Or with the color indicator that you get the correct color, and it tells you there's no product left in that hair whatsoever. Acids neutralize alkalis. Therefore, the application of an acid-balanced shampoo or a normalizing lotion neutralizes any remaining hydroxide ions and also helps to lower the pH of the hair and scalp. Some neutralizing shampoos intended for use after hydroxide relaxers have a built-in pH indicator. And this is like some of y'all said you had some experience working with pools and checking the pH of them, and it'll give you an indication by color. So it goes back to the same premise. Since the disulfide bonds that have been broken by hydroxide relaxers cannot be reformed by oxidation, application of a neutralizer that contains an oxidizing agent will not rebuild the disulfide bonds. And what this means is if you don't have neutralizing shampoo, you've done this relaxer, now you realize it's time to neutralize, and it didn't come with a neutralizer. Because remember, it turned its bonds into lanthionine bonds instead of just breaking them, so we couldn't reform them. So don't go back there and take a bottle of neutralizer out of one of your permanent waves and use with a sodium hydroxide relaxer. Excuse me. The different types of hydroxide relaxers. Metal hydroxide relaxers are ionic compounds formed by a metal, such as sodium, potassium, or lithium, and they're combined with oxygen and hydrogen. Metal hydroxide relaxers contain sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, or lithium hydroxide. Although calcium hydroxide is sometimes added to hydroxide relaxers, it's not used by itself to relax hair. All metal hydroxide relaxers contain only one component and are used exactly as they are packaged. You do not mix them. And mixing also tells us something. Remember in permanent waves we said we had to mix an activator with some of them we just snip the bottle. Sodium hydroxide relaxers are commonly called lye relaxers. Sodium hydroxide is the oldest and still the most commonly used type of relaxer. The results are better. So as long as results are good with something, it doesn't matter if it's an old product, it's going to be used. Sodium hydroxide is also known as lye or caustic soda. Y'all remember what lye is? Put in what? It's in soap. You go to the grocery store and you buy it under the name brand of Drano, or you can find the lye there. It eats up the corrosion in your water pipes when you put it on there. Sodium hydroxide is also known as lye or caustic soda and is the same chemical that is used in drain cleaners and chemical hair depilatories. So we're right back now to neat and nair, the chemical hair dissolvers. Lithium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide relaxers are often advertised and sold as no mix, no lye relaxers. Although technically they are not lye, their chemistry is identical. There's very little difference in their performance. Guanidine hydroxide relaxers are usually advertised and sold as no lye relaxers. Although technically they are not lye, the hydroxide ion is still the active ingredient. Guanidine hydroxide relaxers contain two components that must be mixed prior to use. And something that we often have students do, and I think probably our practitioners do too, they get out a bottle of the relaxer, they mix the two components, and they find out they don't use but half of it. So they know they've spent extra money on it. And it's an old wives' tale, and I'll make that plain, it's an old wives' tale. If you will take it and keep it in the refrigerator then instead of sitting it back on the shelf, you can use it later. First off, you don't want where you have dipped in to use on one client, you don't want something that you're going to dip in and use on another client because you've already contaminated the container. Second off, it's not going to work when you get it out later and put it on. And although it's not going to work to relax the hair, it may very well work to blister their skin or even do damage to the hair, although it doesn't relax it. Guanidine hydroxide relaxers straighten hair completely with much less scalp irritation than hydroxide. They are recommended for sensitive scalps and are sold over the counter for home use. And that's another thing to me. If it's sold over the counter for home use, this brand, I'm not going to have it on my shelf in the beauty salon or the school because there's no incentive for a client to come to me to use something that she can buy at the corner dollar store or Walmart or wherever. Although they reduce scalp irritation, they do not reduce hair damage. They swell the hair slightly more than other hydroxide relaxers. They're also more drying, especially after you keep applying it time after time. We have a caution here also. Application of a Thio relaxer or Thio permanent on hair that has been treated with a hydroxide relaxer will not properly relax or curl the hair and may cause extreme damage. Hair that has been treated with hydroxide relaxers is unfit for Thio relaxers or soft curl perms. Remember we talked about that yesterday when we was doing the soft curl perms. And this is why a person that has a relaxer tends to stay with the relaxer. Those that have the curly kit have a tendency to stay with the curly kit because that hair has got to grow long enough that it can be cut off before you put one chemical over the other. Low pH relaxers. Sulfites and bisulfites are sometimes used as low pH relaxers. The most common are ammonium sulfite and ammonium bisulfite. Sulfites are marketed as a mild alternative relaxer. They are compatible with Thio relaxers, but not compatible again with hydroxide relaxers. They do not completely straighten extremely curly hair. Low pH relaxers are intended for use on color-treated, damaged, or fine hair. Then we have our base or no base relaxers. When I first got into the business, you had to base every scalp before every relaxer. And what a base is simply a protectant for the scalp in case we get relaxer on the scalp. You got to remember what relaxers do to hair, and that will tell you what relaxers do to skin or scalp. Relaxers swell the hair. They open the cuticle scales. They soften the hair. So what's happening to the skin if we get it on the skin or scalp? We hadn't discussed that, have we? All we've said is it gets chemical burns. It begins to swell the skin cells. It may even be removing the top or protective layer of skin. And if we allow it to lay there, it's going to give them a chemical burn that would look pretty much like if we lit a piece of firewood or whatever and just held it to our client, good and hot. So we want to be real careful about getting it on the skin. We always put a base cream, and even if you don't have anything else, Vaseline or petroleum jelly will work. Put a base cream around the scalp line, also on the ears, because it's real easy to get product on the ears, and all the way around. Now, from a professional standpoint, and if you go to beauty shows where they have professionals that do the work, and all these platform artists for your bigger companies, they're going to use something else. It's not going to be the same base cream that's put around the hairline, but they're going to put a base cream all over that scalp. Now, the problems with basing is any hair that base cream has got on will not successfully process, because a base cream is something used to keep this chemical from penetrating either the skin or, if it gets on the hair. But most companies have come out with one, and you just make small parts, just like we did applying the relaxer yesterday, and you put it on there, and it will seep on the scalp. And it's really good about not getting on the hair unless you're sloppy with your application and put it on the hair. You part and pull the hair down on both sides, and they usually have a small nozzle on the bottle, and you run it there and then take a gloved finger and put it on the scalp. My recommendation is always to put a base cream, whether the company calls for it or not. If it says it's no base, then you ought to base anyway. You're going to question your client during client consultation, and if they say, the last perm I had, or I've had perm relaxers that really just cause my scalp to tingle and burn, that's an indication to you to put a base cream. So my ideal is always put a base, even with no base relaxers. So hydroxide relaxers are usually sold in base and no base formulas. Base cream is an oily cream used to protect the skin and scalp during the hair relaxing. Base relaxers require that application of the base cream to the entire scalp. So if it doesn't say a no base relaxer, then you better do it, because if you don't, you'll just have the scalp peeling up in layers and all kind of irritation and burns. No base relaxers do not require that application of protective base. They contain a base cream that is designed to melt at body temperature. Now, what this is telling us, and this is why it worries me about it working correctly, is as we apply that relaxer and it begins to get to our body temperature, that base is going to separate itself from the relaxer and run over the scalp to protect it. but we often have to get relaxers off of clients ahead of time because it begins to burn their scalp. So they never thoroughly process because we have to get it off earlier. No base relaxers are simply an improvement on the protection that is provided by the oils in all hydroxide relaxers. For added protection, base cream may be applied to the entire hairline and around the ears. Then we want to talk about our relaxer strength. And we remember with our permanent waves, we've got different people with different types of hair, and we want to use a different product. And my rule of thumb with any of these products is use what you have to use to get the desired results, but no more than you have to use. So the relaxer strengths are mild, regular, and super. Mild strengths are formulated for fine textured hair, color-treated hair, or damaged hair. Regular strength is formulated for those clients that we see most in the salon. Luckily for us, most everybody has normal hair. Super strength relaxers should be used for maximum straightening on coarse hair that is extremely curly. We've got to make sure that this hair has the cuticle scales closed tightly down, because if they're opened up a little bit, this chemical is strong enough to go right on in and eat the hair up, and that's not something we want. Chemical hair relaxing procedures. Which procedure did I show you yesterday? Virgin application. We started our steps to go through. So we know how to do a virgin application. We part the hair off into 4 sections. Straight down the middle, straight back to the back of the ears. We begin our process by coming out 1/2 to 1 inch away from the scalp. We start applying our relaxer on 1/8 inch partings. That's a very small little parting. We apply it on the top side. We hold it up and we apply it on the bottom side. We do not go to the ends of the hair. Why do we not go to the ends of the hair with it? The ends are porous. It will process more. Why did we not apply it a little closer to the scalp? Heat makes chemical processes process faster. So we would have had over-processed hair really close to the scalp and over-processed hair on the ends before this mid-shaft was allowed to successfully process. So we did our virgin application yesterday, and 6 weeks have expired now, and they're back for a retouch. How are we going to apply for a retouch? We going to go through that same virgin application process? No, we're not, because we don't want to apply that relaxer to hair that we've just previously relaxed. So where are we going to apply the relaxer now that she's back for a retouch? To the new growth only. Thank you for not saying the roots. Us cosmetologists have been fussing about roots for the longest. Clients come flying in the salon. My roots need doing. And one company has even put a product out now, if y'all been watching on TV, it's color for the roots. Now, I'd like to see it work because the roots are beneath the scalp. So I find that rather comical. So say the new growth only. We call it a retouch, but often you're going to have a client call and say, I need a touch-up. So what is the difference in a retouch and a touch-up? Nothing. They now have some new hair, and it's curly, and the rest of their hair is straight or relaxed, and you've been rolling it on rollers or putting it on hot Marcel irons and giving them a style. Now their style does not want to work well because they've got this real curly hair close to the scalp and the straighter hair at the ends. So you do a retouch by applying to new growth only. We also have a caution here. Make sure the client has not had hair coloring containing metallic salts, such as gradual or progressive hair colors, before you apply Thio or hydroxide relaxers. Extreme damage or breakage can occur. And we keep hearing about this metallic dyes, and when we get into hair coloring, we're going to study those. But metallic dyes now and in the past actually have been mostly marketed to men. For men only and all this, and the men will go and buy this product, And on TV it tells you it will gradually, so people don't notice the change. You don't wind up with gray hair today and then tomorrow black if you put it on there, or dark brown. It has to gradually build up, and this is what they're talking about with gradual or progressive hair colors. And every time you apply it to the hair, you take a metal comb and comb it through. It already has some metallic salts in it, and the metal from that comb will react on the hair also to gradually color that hair. And if we apply a relaxer on top of hair that has been treated with those metallic dyes, certain metals will cause a reaction that will make the hair begin to boil, just like you had put it on the stove in a pot of water. It begins to boil. Needless to say, we want to get it off as quickly as we can. But as we go into hair color, we'll study what the signs are to let us know that that hair may have been attacked with metal or metallic dyes. While we've got our relaxer on the hair, we want to do periodic strand testing. Now, we talked about doing a trial check on perm rods to see if the hair had successfully curled. We'd unroll it and see if there's an S formation. Here we're going to put a paper towel under it or a towel under it. We're going to wipe some of the product off and just take and push the hair back towards the head. If it wants to curl up, we need to put some solution back on it, let it stay there a little longer until it completely, the disulfide bonds have lanthionized, and then we rinse it off. While we're rinsing it, we're not going to do all this scrubbing like we do with shampoo, and we want to keep it in a straightened position while we rinse. Then we want to apply a neutralizing shampoo. And we always want to remember we don't want to leave it on so long that we've broken too many disulfide bonds, because we're not able to reform them as they were before. We can only lanthonize them. So we don't want to leave it on and leave it on. And rule of thumb says do not relax more than 80% of a person's curl out, because to do so leaves the hair in such a weakened state that it's going to begin to break off. So we want to keep that in mind too. If it shows a little bit of wave there as we strand test it, fine. You know, it's got only 80% relaxed. But if it's still showing us a real good S formation there, we need to process longer. The application steps for Thio relaxers are the same as those for hydroxide relaxers, although the neutralization procedure is different. Relaxers may be applied with a bowl and brush, an applicator bottle, or the back of a rat tail comb. And what we're talking about with the back of a rat tail comb is not the teeth and pulling it through, but it's to flip it over and have the teeth up and smooth it. And the reason we're smoothing it again is we want this to process while it's in a straightened form. Because if we don't, whatever form, if we've got it all knotted up or pushed up or whatever, that's the shape it's going to be in, because remember, we're breaking the bonds to make it take its new shape. The elasticity of the hair. We want to be careful once we have applied our product and the hair is laying flat or straight with the weight of that product on it. Don't keep combing it and pulling it, because if we do, we're destroying the elasticity. And elasticity of the hair is what allows us to comb it. We'll comb it down, it'll appear a little longer, and when we turn it loose, it pops back up. So it's vitally important that we do not destroy that elasticity. Now we want to do some safety precautions for hair relaxers, and I know that we went over this yesterday, but now we may have some more questions to come up. We want to perform a thorough hair analysis and client consultation prior to the relaxer. What is important about the hair analysis, and what are the 6 points?
Texture, density, length, and direction.
We call the 6-point method, the first thing is the scalp. We're going to check the scalp first, because if there's abrasions or irritations and some sort of disease or disorder, what's going to happen? Chemicals going to get in it. So we're going to stop right there. That's why we check the scalp first. So then the next 5 points of our analysis are about the hair. We said hair texture, porosity. What is porosity? The ability to absorb any type of moisture. All right, let's go back and talk about our bonds again for a minute. We know when we've done the permanent wave and we wet the hair to shampoo it, that the water broke the hydrogen bonds. Remembering hydrogen bonds are physical bonds and they're side bonds. But we didn't shampoo before we relaxed, so what is going to break those hydrogen bonds there? Remember, hydrogen bonds are the most plentiful in the hair, but they're wimpy bonds. They're very weak bonds. You remember me telling about, no, this was another group. I'm sorry, I've done got over into hair pressing. But I think y'all heard me saying a client gets their hair pressed, which is physical change, and they go outside and it's raining, they got an umbrella over their head, but the moisture in the air will make that hair go back to curly. You understand what I'm talking about? So that's your hydrogen bonds at play. So any type of moisture will break them. So the moisture in the relaxer broke them. What else should we find out in the analysis? We said texture, porosity, density. What's density?
Hairs per square inch.
How many hairs per square inch there is on the head? How about elasticity? Elasticity one of them? Yes, we want to know about elasticity. And elasticity is kind of a hard one. We pull the hair and we try to watch how much we pull in it. We take a hair actually out of the head. Normal, healthy hair, when dry, should stretch 1/5 or either 20% of its length and then return without any problem. Normal, healthy, wet hair should stretch how much? 50 or 1/2 of its length. That's what gets us in trouble with hair cutting also. But what happens, we've got this strong chemical on the hair, and we have stretched it down. So we need to check the elasticity first. If we're in doubt or that hair seemed to pop, break when we first started stretching it, it's a good idea not to do the relaxer today. Take your client back there and wet the hair, and this is a surefire way of knowing about elasticity if you've got the doubts or it seemed to break early. And y'all all shampoo your hair and you know how it feels when it's wet. You can feel the individual hair strands there. For hair that has lost its elasticity or the elasticity has been destroyed, that hair will feel like wet cotton. It will be a mush. You cannot feel individual strands. And you may hear your older hairdressers sometimes say, that hair cottoned up. Well, it did. All the elasticity was gone, so it no longer stretched. What will happen when the elasticity is gone from the hair? It breaks. There's nothing to hold it on anymore. So that's why we want to do a thorough analysis. The 5th point was the condition, actually, of the hair, which is a combination of all the other things. Examine the scalp for abrasions. If there is any abrasion there, a lot of clients will tell you, well, you're going to put a base on there or just put some of that base cream and go on. Are you going to do that? No. She doesn't have the background that you have. She doesn't understand what could occur with it, but you do. So if you go ahead and proceed with it and then she runs into some big time problems, it's your fault because you knew better. She didn't. Keep accurate and detailed client records of services performed and the results. Why is that important to us in the future that we keep it? Right. They really liked it, so now we know what we used. We want to do our retouch with it. Have the client sign a release statement that indicates that the client understands the possible risk. What does the release statement do for us? It saves us if something through the normal routine that could occur does occur. It does not save us, though, if she did have those scalp abrasions or irritations and we went ahead and applied the product anyway. It does not protect us from negligence, and that's negligence, to go ahead and do what you know better than to do. Do not apply a hydroxide relaxer on hair that has previously been treated with a Thio relaxer. Do not apply a Thio relaxer to hair that has previously had a hydroxide relaxer. Do not chemically relax hair that has been treated with metallic dyes. Do not relax overly damaged hair. Suggest instead a series of reconstruction treatments. And I'll have students ask me, and I've even heard professionals say this, well, if I don't do it, the shop down the street's going to do it for her. Well, if the hair's going to fall out, I say let the shop down the street go for it. You know, you got to remember every style, every cut, every relaxer you do, it's like signing your signature to it. So her hair is really damaged, and you let her talk you into it. When she leaves your shop, the hair is only about that long. Now, is she going to take responsibility that she really put in on you, that she had to have a relaxer, or is she going to go out and say she burned every bit of my hair off? What's she going to say?
She burned every bit of my hair.
She's going to lay every bit of the blame on you, although she insisted. So don't worry about the $50 you missed today. Let it go on the next hairdresser's record. It's not worth it. Do not shampoo the hair prior to the application of hydroxide relaxers. Why do you assume that's a rule? I don't think the book ever explained that anywhere. Why do you think we are not going to shampoo before we put one of those strong hydroxide relaxers on it? Because we don't want to take the chance of irritating that scalp the least little bit. And you know, when we shampoo the hair, even if we're doing a light shampoo. So we want to make sure that we don't irritate the scalp. We also want to make sure that we have not opened up the cuticle scales more that would allow that product to go in a lot. And we've already chosen our product. We want to make sure we don't use a product that would close the cuticle scales down more and keep our product from working correctly. The client's hair and scalp must be completely dry and free from perspiration prior to the application of a hydroxide relaxer. And a question that usually arises with that is, well, if I can't shampoo it first, how do I make sure, you know, there's no perspiration or anything there? Most clients that receive relaxers know to shampoo 2 or 3 days before they come to the salon. The scalp has settled back down, and when you analyze the hair, it's as it's going to be when you apply. Apply a protective base cream to avoid scalp irritation. Wear gloves during the relaxer application. I know that the skin on your hands is a little different than skin around a client's hairline or ears, but what will the relaxer do to your hands? It'll eat your skin up. It'll burn your hands. Protect the client's eyes. If any solution accidentally gets in the client's eyes, flush the eye immediately with cool water and refer them to a doctor. Now, I say this all the time, and I live by this myself because I don't want anything popping in my eyes that may cause blindness or give me some bad problems. The major time you've got to worry about getting relaxer in their eyes is when you put the water spray on there from the sink. So the best thing you can do is have you a few bath cloths. It's a small price to pay to have to wash that. Fold it up and lay it over their eyes as you rinse that out so it doesn't pop in their eyes. When you get through rinsing it, then remove it, because most of that product is gone, and about the worst can happen is you get a little shampoo in her eyes. Of course, I don't want to do that either, but that would be preferable to relaxer. Do not allow chemical relaxers to accidentally come into contact with the client's ears, scalp, or skin. Perform periodic strand tests to see how fast the natural curls are being removed. Avoid scratching the scalp with your comb or fingernails. Do not allow the application of a relaxer retouch to overlap onto previously relaxed hair. What's going to happen when we're doing that retouch if we pull it into that previously relaxed hair a little bit? That's right. There'll be too much chemical processing going on that spot on the hair, and it's going to break off. Never use a strong relaxer on fine or damaged hair. Do not attempt to remove more than 80% of the natural curl. Thoroughly rinse the chemical relaxer from the hair. Failure to rinse properly can cause excessive skin irritation and hair breakage. Use a normalizing lotion to restore the hair and scalp to their normal acidic pH. We consider conditioning as step 3 in hair relaxing. So that doesn't mean this is an extra service that we would usually charge extra for. What does that mean? That is part of it. We process, use our neutralizing shampoo, and we condition. That is the 3 steps to relaxing. Even if this is a client that doesn't usually use conditioner, right now we use a conditioner. There's several reasons we're going to use it. It's going to normalize the hair, meaning help take it back to its pH. It's going to close cuticle scales. It's going to also take out any tangles that may be there so we don't have to pull on this fragile hair now. Use a neutralizing shampoo with a color indicator to guarantee that the hair and scalp have been restored to their normal acidic pH. Use a conditioner and wide tooth comb to eliminate excessive stretching. Do not use hot irons or excessive heat on chemically relaxed hair. Keep in mind that doing texturizing services, and that's whether it's perm or relaxer, it's just that we've been going uphill in our chemical strength. They've got to be handled with utmost care because they are powerful chemicals. We've already found out that mixing some of them can be flammable. Mixing some of them can cause a boiling sensation on the hair. If you act responsibly and perfect your techniques, your services will be in great demand. Yesterday, and I realized it was y'all's first time, and that was perfectly all right. You're just learning, and we know that that wasn't really relaxer you had to practice with. But while you're doing it with cholesterol, is a good time to build your speed up, because it's of vital importance that you don't let relaxer over here sit for 30 minutes waiting on you to get over here, whether it be a retouch or a virgin application, because then you're going to have extremely over-processed hair and extremely under-processed hair because you're going to have to remove it before the newest application side has had time to successfully work. Questions? We're good to go?